welcome to Culture Ventures. I'm your host, Antonia McCutcheon. And with me today, we have Nora Paine from the New Tampa Players. Welcome, Nora. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell me, what is your role with the New Tampa Players?
Well, I'm the producing artistic director for New Tampa Players, and so that means I do a lot of things like figure out the season, work on all the individual productions, hire the directors, the music directors, and the choreographers.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. It's a lot of ways to be creative.
What's interesting is you're actually 2 doors down from where we're at, so we see each other often, occasionally see things that go on, and sometimes outside of the studio. And it just seems like you guys are having some really interesting things and productions that are happening over there. So tell me a little bit about the New Tampa Players.
So New Tampa Players is a community theater, and a community theater is a theater run by community members. So everybody that's involved in our productions, from the director all the way down to the ensemble, is a community member and a volunteer. And that's basically how a community theater works. And at New Tampa Players, we have shows that are going to take place up at the New Tampa Performing Arts Center in New Tampa. We'll have shows that take place here at Uptown Stage here at the University Mall. And we have a couple of different programs that are going on right now.
So tell me about the programs that you guys have.
Okay, so our main stage, those are those big musicals. So those are the things that are like Legally Blonde, the musical, or Little Mermaid, or some of those Disney shows that have, 50 people in the cast and all of the big lights and the costumes and all of those. We do about 4 of those a year, and those are all done up at the New Tampa Performing Arts Center. And, those are a good way for everybody from adults to kids to get involved. So there's those. We also do Penguin Project, which is a theater program for children and young adults with special needs. We right now have a cast of about 100 people.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so those are really, really big shows. We do junior-length musicals with those. And then we have our Uptown Stage series, which is small plays and musicals. It's a small space. It's a black box theater. So you're looking at shows that are, 5 to 10 people in cast. Sometimes we do things that wouldn't usually be done on a big stage because you wouldn't get the number of people in the audience that you would need in order to fund those types of shows.
Right. Well, oftentimes those types of shows are a little bit more intimate, and making them a really big production sometimes takes away from the nature of what they are. So tell me a little bit more about the Penguin Project and how that all works.
Yes, Penguin Project is fun to say about 45 times right in a row.
Penguin Project.
Penguin Project. And yes, and our second year we did Peter Pan Jr., so I got to say Penguin Project production of Peter Pan Jr. all the time.
Oh, for God's sakes. Oh my gosh, there's all those P's.
All those P's, but yes. So Penguin Project was a theater program that started up in Illinois, and it was invented by Dr. Andrew Morgan, who is a developmental pediatrician and also involved in community theater. And he saw that his clients in his office didn't have as much access to community theater as his own children did. So he took his expertise from being a developmental pediatrician and his expertise in working in community theater and put them together and made the Penguin Project. So it's a way for children and young adults with special needs to become involved in theater.
And where do these programs air?
They are full-scale theater productions, and they're up at the New Tampa Performing Arts Center. We do one a year. It takes us 6 months to rehearse them. So you really can only do one a year, 60 rehearsals. We usually start sometime in October, and we perform sometime in March or April. We start with a few rehearsals at the beginning. That's just one of those like get to know you type rehearsals with acting games and all the name games that we play, and you try to remember all the 60 children's names. Yes, that we play. Right. We do those for a few weeks, and we're just trying to see what our artists like to do. Do they like to sing? Do they like to dance? Do they really want lines? Or they don't want lines? We have some that don't want lines. Okay, we can make that happen. And we spend that time getting to know them, and then about 8 weeks-ish into the process, we cast the show. And all the roles are filled by children and young adults with special needs. We also at that point, we match their peer mentors, and a peer mentor works with them throughout the whole entire process. And they're there just to help them, like if they forget the line, they whisper it in their ear. If they have a little bit of problems with choreography, they can copy their feet, that type of thing. And sometimes it's just encouragement, just to have somebody there, And they even perform on stage with them during the performances at the end. So after the show is cast and all the peer mentors are matched, we do about 16 weeks of rehearsal, and we start with rehearsals that are about an hour and a half long. usually no longer than an hour and a half. And they learn the choreography and the blocking and the songs and all of that. And then when we get towards the end, we start putting it all together and trying to run sections of the show. And these are usually musicals that run about an hour. They're a junior length musical. Ours usually, that's hour that is usually expected to run. Ours usually run about an hour and 20 minutes between getting kids on and off the stage and that type of thing. But it's a wonderful, wonderful experience because they really get a way to participate in theater without the obstacles to being involved in a community theater usually are. Things like auditions. Most community theaters have auditions of some sort. You know, you have to come in, you have to sing 16 bars of a song that you've memorized, and there's people, you know, sitting there looking at you. And then you go and do a dance audition where
very intimidating.
it can be incredibly intimidating. And you go and do a dance audition, you learn like 15, 30 seconds, and then you have to perform it like 15 minutes later.
Right, like I know because I'm a dancer, I'm an ex-dancer, and I remember the auditions, they would show them to you like once or twice, and then you had to perform it right then and there.
Right then and there.
You just learned like minutes ago. So yes.
And then, you know, at that point, decisions are made and people are called back for different roles. And at that point, you have to do cold readings. So you're reading from a script of something that you've never read. So some of these obstacles are just not possible for children and young adults with special needs that may have reading difficulties like dyslexia, or they may have trouble memorizing, or they may have motor function problems and that type of thing. You know, so they just look at it and they go, well, I can't do that.
Right.
And Penguin Project turns those I can'ts into I can, because you don't have to audition for Penguin Project.
Right. You automatically are part of it. And like you said, you get to know the children and the young adults and figure out where the positions are going to be. I can imagine how these productions end up being, because it just, the fact that you take the time to get to know them, and then it becomes like a sense of community, and it's no longer just trying to put on a production, but you know, just a sense of people coming together and learning each other, and then putting on the production from what you've learned. I can only imagine how wonderful these productions end up being.
And you know, it's one of those situations where many times, you know, the parents, the family, they're like, how is this going to work, Nora? I'm like, it's going to be fine. And they're like, I'm not so sure. I'm like, it's going to work. You trust me. You just have to wait. We're going to get there, you know. And when we do opening night and the kids walk out and they get a standing ovation, the looks on their faces and the looks on their parents' faces are just amazing.
I can imagine. I can imagine. And for them to have that opportunity where they otherwise wouldn't, I mean, that just truly sounds like a wonderful program. So tell me a little bit about Uptown Stage.
So Uptown Stage is a black box theater, and originally it kind of looked like the inside of a Radio Shack.
Was it Radio Shack? It was Radio Shack.
I think it might have been a Radio
Radio
Shack.
a couple of years ago. I remember there was a Radio Shack.
It really
down here.
looked like
That's
a Radio Shack when we came in to rent it. So it had, you know, the brown boards going down the sides where you could put the stuff that you were going to sell and et cetera. So when we came in, we took most of COVID actually to remake the theater into a black box theater. And a black box theater is literally a black box.
Right, black floors, black walls, black ceilings.
Yeah, we didn't do the black ceiling because that's a little expensive. But
right.
there are black walls and a black floor, and we can rearrange it in almost any way. We can move the audience wherever we need the audience to be. We can put the stage in the middle. We can put the stage at the front. We can make the stage 32 feet deep. We can make all of these different things. So we can do many different types of shows that way. And we can do some shows that have just been envisioned on a standard stage. We can do them in the round. We can do them on one end at this side and one end at that side. So it's a lot of different creativity that can go into that. One that comes to mind is we did Laramie Project 10 years later, which is a story of when the group went back to Laramie, Wyoming 10 years later and talked with the residents there about what had happened. And we actually did that show with a stage at one end of the theater, another stage at the other, and then a walkway in between. So it was really cool, and the audience was on each side of the walkway or the runway. We called it the runway.
The runway.
But, yeah. So you know, it wasn't a standard.
Yeah.
It wasn't a standard experience. All of the people in the show played multiple characters, and they started the show in the audience. So you know, you had the audience come in, and the actors are sitting in the audience and they didn't really know that they were the actors. And then the show begins and one stands up and says, and comes up on stage, and then the next one, and
they're
the
surprised. They're like,
oh, and I've been sitting, and these are people
next to the actor this whole time.
Exactly, and some people didn't know our actors, but some people did, and they didn't even realize they were in the show.
Right.
So they're just sitting there talking with their friend, and then their friend stands up and
then all of a sudden they go into the production. That's I've actually in Vegas one time I went to one of those shows, and I had someone sitting next to me that was part of the play, and it was so much fun because you do feel like you're a part of it because they're dancing around you, they sit at your table, you become part of that whole play. So I'm sure that production must have just been a lot of fun for the audience as well as the people who were performing it.
And it gives us an opportunity to do stuff that, you can't really, it doesn't have the name recognition, so to speak. So you're not going to get a large audience for it. It gives it a place to be able to do that type of stuff. So we just did Zombie Prom.
For Halloween?
For Halloween.
Yeah.
And most people are like, Zombie Prom? Haven't ever heard of Zombie Prom.
That sounds like
And Zombie Prom was
fun,
actually a movie back in the late 80s. And it really is basically what it sounds like. A high school kid turns into a zombie and goes to the prom is basically what it boils down to. But it also deals with issues of acceptance and issues of, the little cliques in high school and all of that type of stuff. It's set in the 50s. It was all very tongue-in-cheek type stuff. It was, the school was called Enrico Fermi High, and Enrico Fermi was the father of the atomic bomb. So he went to the Enrico Fermi High, and he ended up becoming a zombie by
in science class. Was he doing some
he actually he went to the nuclear power plant.
Oh, okay.
So it was all those types of things, a lot of 50s references and all of that.
Right.
But that type of show would not necessarily have gotten a pull to sit for a 300 seat audience. But,
right.
But it was a lot of fun to do.
I think just the title of it would draw people, Zombie Prom. I know that I would go see that, especially during Halloween. It makes sense and it sounds like a lot of fun. So, wonderful. So tell me about any other projects that the New Tampa Player are involved in.
Well, those are the basic three things that we do. I mean, overall, we're trying to make sure that anybody can be involved in theater, regardless of, the amount of time that they have. We try to make our schedules very flexible as much as we can, regardless if they have any experience. You don't have to have any experience in theater to come and do an NTP show. You audition, and we always have a few people in every show that have never done theater before, and that's always a fun experience.
So basically anybody in the community can come and sign up to be a part of these productions.
And it's not just on stage, it's also backstage.
Right.
So, all of these shows require a technical staff to do, much like what we're doing here. It requires the technical staff to do. So, we have sound engineers, lighting engineers, you need people to build the set, people to design the set, the costumes, the props, all of those things are done by volunteers. For example, we're doing Beauty and the Beast Jr. We need about 150 costumes to do that for Penguin Project. So those all have to be constructed. So, we have volunteers that come in, and some of them can sew really, really well. So they're the ones constructing. Some, our main costumer teaches how to cut out patterns, and they cut out everything, and then another person runs it through the machine, and then there's people that can do, the crafting parts of things. So Beauty and the Beast Jr., they have all of those objects. Mrs. Potts is a teapot.
Right.
And there's forks and spoons and napkins, and like the forks, for example, they have a fork that runs, a big fork, like this big, that runs up their back. So somebody has to cut those out and spray paint them and all of that too. So there's lots and lots of different ways to get involved in a theater that I think from the front you wouldn't think of.
Right. It's not just performing, but there's so much that goes on backstage. And I know that very well, being, here at Tampa Bay Community Network. I mean, to prepare for just our shoot today took way longer than our actual interview is going to take. There's lighting, there's sound, you have to change up microphones, and you need technical people who understand this. And then, of course, the costumes, that takes a lot of talent. You know, people do need to know how to sew and put things together. So I'm sure you have a wide array of talent, volunteers that can do just about anything.
We do, and they also are able to teach people to do just about anything.
Right.
You know, many of our sound people and our lighting people are not professional sound and lighting people. They learned from a person who taught them at a New Tampa Players production a couple of years ago. My own 16-year-old son has learned how to do sound by working in the theater. I learned how to do sound by working in a theater. So
right. So do you ever perform?
Well, okay, yes and no. So I came into theater by being a stage manager.
Okay.
My origin story, so to speak. I went to college and I had never done theater. And my freshman year, one of the English professors came up to me and he was like, so our student technical director, we don't have one of those. Would you like a scholarship and to do that? And I'm like, well, what does that involve? And he starts telling me, I'm like, well, I don't know how to do much of this stuff. He's like, I'll teach you. And I did that for 4 years in college. I did 16 shows. I learned how to do costuming. I learned how to do sets. I learned how to do painting. I learned how to do all of those types of things while doing the shows. And then I took time off for graduate school. I have a master's degree in Montessori education. And after the birth of our third child, who is now 14, I came to Tampa. And I started emailing everybody, all the local community theaters, asking if they needed a stage manager. And Doug Wall from New Tampa Players answered the email, and I stage managed my first show here in Tampa in 2008. It was a funny thing happened on the way to the Forum. And from there, I just went from that to being the production director, and then to being president, and now to being producing artistic director. But all along, you know, you learn things as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny how it's almost you accidentally came upon theater and productions
but when I started, I knew nothing.
Right.
You know, and so now I can build a set, I can do sound, I can do lighting, I stage manage. That's still my favorite thing to do.
Right.
I direct Penguin Project, you know, and I can basically do everything except really sew. I don't sew very well, and I cannot play a piano.
Right, gotcha. How about sing?
Can't sing that well, although I can match notes. I have learned how to match notes. The tone is not so great, but I can match notes and help people.
You can carry a tune for the most part.
Yeah, I can help our young artists get the right pitches.
Gotcha.
But we have music directors that handle the actual teaching of the music.
Gotcha. And you have musicians who play live during these productions?
Yes, not for Penguin Project, because Penguin Project those kids need the music to go exactly the exact same way every single time. So we use tracks for them. But for all the other productions, we use a live orchestra. And our music director plays the piano and conducts the orchestra for the actual live shows.
And then do you also have dancers as part of your team who come from that world, the dance world, and are not just performers as far as acting is concerned, but actual dancers?
Yes, we do. We have actual dancers with a dance background. We have actors who have taken some dance. So there's different levels of that. I am not a dancer. I mean, I took 9 years of dance when I was younger, and I always joke that I took 9 years of dance, and now I can walk mostly. But I can do some basic steps. The Penguin Project taught me that, because one of the things that I do along with the music directors, we're down in front of the kids when they do the actual show, so we have to be able to do the choreography. So I can do a little bit of choreography. But for our main stage shows, yes, we do. We have people with dance backgrounds that are featured dancers and that type of thing.
Wonderful. So are any of your productions musicals?
All of them at the New Tampa Performing Arts Center are musicals.
Are musicals. Okay. All right. And what other types of productions have you done? I'm assuming you've done comedy. How about any dramatic productions?
We have. I mean, mostly what NTP is known for is musicals.
Gotcha.
Mostly. We have done comedies along the way. We've done, like Noise is Off. That's pretty much the standard comedy that, community theaters do. And it's a lot of fun because you get to rearrange the set right in the middle of the show. So we've done those. We've done some dramas, like Laramie Project is a drama. And we've done a lot of the dramas over here at the Uptown Stage, because those really, the smaller dramas work well in this space.
All right. So, any interesting stories that you have for me since you've been doing this throughout the years? Something
oh goodness,
funny that happened, or just like a unique situation?
Oh, there are always things that happen. It is live theater. I mean, you can't, when as you stage manage live theater, you're like, yep, didn't see
Kind
that
of like
one.
a wedding. There's always something
There's
that's gonna
always
go
something that's going to
wrong.
happen.
Yeah.
And you're good to go as long as the audience doesn't notice. One of the first shows that I stage managed for NTP was Music Man. And it was over at the University Area CDC, because this has been years ago. And in that show, Mrs. Peru's house is featured in that show and has to come on and off the stage. So it's built up, it has wheels, it looks like a little house. And we were rolling Mrs. Peru's house off, and it caught a curtain, and they kept going. So the curtain is like threaded all up into the top of Mrs. Peru's roof.
Oh, no.
You know, and these set changes are supposed to take top 45 seconds. They give you music, you know, they give the orchestra music to cover these, but they give you like 45 seconds of music. And the curtain, and you could see all the way through to the backstage. And so
oh no, because it opened it up.
it opened up the entire curtain. It took all the black curtains on stage left. You could see all the way back through the workshop. And you know, so I'm climbing the house to get up to knock the curtain off, you know, and the orchestra's still playing, and we're still like 4 minutes.
And you're trying to make sure people can't see
oh,
you.
everybody can see, they can see me. They can see me. And I'm climbing, I'm pretty short. And I'm climbing up on top of this roof of this set piece, and the orchestra's playing, and finally the music director's like, I have no more music, and he just goes, because he's like, I don't have anything else to do. You know, and I'm unthreading a curtain in the middle of a scene. But, you know, these things happen.
What are you gonna do?
What are you going to do?
I was in a dance production in Ybor City a few years ago, and I was basically put in this gigantic dress that was about 6 feet tall. It was built out of wood, and then there was fabric over it. So the whole purpose of it was for me to look like this, you know, gigantic woman with this huge dress. And I had to like climb up in it and kneel. So the dress was like going all the way down. And there was one point where, because we would do 3 shows a night, where I climbed up in and I went to kneel, and then I kind of fell backwards a little bit. So all of a sudden you just see me climbing back up into the dress in the middle of the production. They're like, where did the girl go? And I'm like, well, my hair was like all up top, you know, a mess. And so, yeah, these things happen. There's nothing that you can do about it.
There's nothing you can do.
And the good thing is, normally the audience is very gracious about it, and they understand that these things happen, and they might chuckle a little bit, but, you know.
And it's the joy of live theater.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you just never know what's going to happen. We did another show that was a mystery, and the zipper of one of the evening gowns came loose in the middle of the scene, and so one of the cast members just grabbed the back of her zipper and held it together and got her off, and our costumer whip-stitched her into her dress in about 20 seconds to get her back on.
Wow.
And she, you know, so those types of things happen.
Yeah, and she grabbed it just in time.
She grabbed it just in time, and
malfunction.
It would have been. It definitely would have been.
Wardrobe malfunction. Yeah, and you know, honestly, after, you know, when these things are happening, you're just like, oh no, why are these things happening? But then afterwards, you laugh about it, and it becomes memories. And then of course you get the productions that go without a kick. They go great, and for the most part.
For the most part.
From what the audience can see.
What the audience can see.
Yeah, because there's always something that
Yeah, I
goes
mean,
wrong.
you know,
yeah.
50 people in the cast and, you know, 25 set pieces, something's going to happen.
Yeah. Have you ever had a cast member not show up, and then you're like, what do we do?
No, we actually haven't had that, and we're going to knock on some wood
Yes,
now. Yes, we are. We've never had that. We've had people that have had to drop out, like during Tech Week, because of family issues or sicknesses and that type of stuff, and that's when you're really glad you have understudies.
That's what I say. So you do use understudies.
It's hard to keep understudies in community theater because you aren't paying the actors. I mean, community theater does not pay the actors. So the joy of community theater for actors is being able to play those parts.
Right, and if you're an understudy, you know
necessarily
that you're probably not going to be playing those parts. So you don't. Right. So it's hard for them to commit, and I can understand that.
Oh, absolutely.
I can understand that. Yeah. Well, and when I was a part of that dance group, we unfortunately didn't have understudies because we didn't have people who could, fill those positions then. And we did have a couple of people not able to make it. And what you do is you just kind of fill in as a dancer. So, and you make up some new steps real quick. And whatever void is there, you just kind of, do some new choreography real quick. So
Fill it in.
There's ways around things too if need be.
And there's several actors in the Tampa Bay area, probably about 10 of them that are really, really quick studies. So you have them on your list, and you run down them like, can you come in and help with this?
Right.
I'll get you the script as soon as possible. I mean, they can memorize real fast.
Right.
So
I don't know how they do that.
I don't know how they do that either. I'm so glad that they can.
Before, and it just doesn't want to come out, or I'm just like, oh, what was that? Dance for me, for some reason, it works. I have muscle memory, so it works. But whenever, I try to act, it just, the words don't want to come out. So, and people who can memorize like quickly like that, and I've seen it where they've memorized like a couple of paragraphs in just a nick of time. Like I just have so much respect for them. So. So you have these people, like you said,
there's about 10
of them.
There's about 10 of them
that you can rely on.
There's about 10 of them in community theater in Tampa, because there's lots of community theaters in Tampa. It's not just New Tampa players, and we know that they can memorize fast. So they when those things happen, they will get a phone call of like, do you have the time to do this? I can get you the script tomorrow morning. We need you on the stage. And then if somebody gets sick, because I mean that has happened a lot. Yeah. Sometimes you just have to send somebody on with the script.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do that. I mean, that's not the goal at any point, but that has, we've had to do that before. And the audience is very, very understanding.
Right. And oftentimes it works out. And then the person who, filled in, was able to have that experience that they might not otherwise have. So, Nora, it's been a pleasure having you today on set. Thank you for being with us on Culture Ventures. I hope to interview you again real soon. Come back and maybe tell us about some new projects that you guys are doing over there. And I have yet to come and check out the Black Box Theater a couple of doors down. So I would love to come and see it.
You should definitely come see us.
Yes, I would love to. So thank you for joining us, and good luck this new year with your future productions. Break a leg. That's what they say.
That's what they say.
That's what they say in dance too. Break a leg.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.